Welcome back to Sunday Vibes 1 and all. We're back in the pub here to answer your questions that you've been sending in all week. The first one was submitted by Callum the Badger Badgley, and he says, name your worst Premier League team of the season so far. Well, we're at the end of it, Callum, so...
Badgers, very vicious creatures, very
mate.
vicious question.
Honey badger, my favourite animal on earth, behind...
Yeah, because it goes straight for the dick, a bit like you.
No,
Knob gag in less than 10 seconds. What a vintage episode this is going to be.
Straight in with homophobia.
That's when you start with the goalkeeper.
Pete Cech. He's Bush. He's terrible.
Peter.
He's so bad. I don't know. The thing about Petr Cech is he's basically put in a performance worthy of a relegation level goalkeeper, but he's done it in a side which ostensibly is challenging for the Champions League places.
From the outside looking in.
Yeah, it means like appearance only. Yeah, so
good one.
Yeah, so we're sixth basically, and Pete Cech just cannot make a save. Like he's making like 1.4 saves per goal, which is not what you expect from a goalkeeper playing for a team which is like wealthy enough to buy another goalkeeper. Like he's put in a performance that you'd expect from someone like Jack Butland, who I think has also had a dreadful season. I know that you have a semi-irrational hatred for Hugo Lloris. You've got an issue with him because somebody once said to you online that he was as good as David De Gea, and now you're still raging about it.
But that doesn't address the question. You think he's the most overhyped goalkeeper, right?
Yeah,
as opposed to the worst.
I would put him down as one of the most overhyped goalkeepers in world football. He's
That's the difference between us. You're a coward.
He's like the top 10 goalkeepers in world football. How's that bastard snuck into that list? It's unreal. How he's done it? Stuck a balaclava on and got in the top 6.
John Snow.
Every time I go and watch Hugo Lloris, you makes an error. Or he
How often do you go and watch Hugo Lloris?
I've probably gone to see Tottenham live 5 times this season. Every single
Seriously?
time.
Generous.
His distribution. Seriously,
You are a glory hunter, aren't you?
Seriously, his distribution when you watch him live is howling. Everything out of play. It's unreal. Like, someone will pass it back to him and he just twats it out, and you just see Pochettino just turn around, just like disappointed.
I mean, statistically, Joe Hart is the worst goalkeeper in the league this season, conceding over 2 goals per game. Jack Butland comes in just below that, and given that Stoke were the first team to concede 50 goals in a Canada season this year, Joe Hart's done extremely well to concede at that level. And people had the temerity to question Pep Guardiola's decision to let him go.
Yeah. His numbers this season are like Bravo's last season.
Yeah. When it came to West Ham signings, Joe Hart perhaps wasn't the worst candidate.
No.
We can give him that. That's some saving grace.
At least he didn't cost 20 million.
But yeah, I think they're 2 strong contenders and 1, just outrageous.
Not to be a big fan of. So
I'm happy to put Hart. I'm happy to put Hart straight in.
Okay, let's go with Joe Hart then. So defenders, we can start with Stoke because Zuma cost £7 million to loan for the season, and that's looked somewhat poor.
Okay.
And Kevin Wimmer, who I believe costs double that, is now training with the under-23s. So,
it's 18. Does it even work more? 18.
Should we begin with Stoke?
Yeah, Lambert said he's like not fit enough, right? And he gave him a personalised fitness regimen.
He's not fit enough, and Charlie Adam makes the team.
But that's the thing as well. Like, also they gave him this fitness regimen in January, and it's now May, and he's still not fit enough. Like, it's been 4 months. He's a professional footballer. What had he been eating over Christmas?
Bit of Luke Shaw syndrome.
I don't understand.
Loves the VKs.
Proper Luke Shaw syndrome.
But Zuma, like, at least you can sell Kevin Wimmer, not for a lot, but you can sell him for a bit. Whereas
he's an asset, yeah.
Zuma, £7 million just alone. You don't have an asset at the end of it. You just, I don't know. I kind of feel like who's gonna want Zuma after that?
There's been some other poor signings.
Eric Peters, he's crap as well.
Yeah, Eric Peters is
rubbish.
I think you could potentially have a look at Michael Keane in this list. £30 million. Let's not forget that price tag hovering over his head.
I think Michael Keane has to be on the short list, but now I think about it more. I think, well, he is still he's not that young, but he's 25, I think. So, like, in theory, he could still have a very good career at Everton.
Yeah.
And I feel like
he's
someone who may benefit from Big Sam's presence at the club. So they're not trying to play expansive football. They're not playing out from the back. He was actually Burnley's last season most successful distributor in terms of passes registered in the final third, and that was because he has a decent diagonal ball, and you imagine that that's a sort of tact Everton are going to adopt moving forward to make themselves a little bit more solid.
in terms of the top 6, though, there are also some candidates in there. Like, obviously not
Mustafi.
quality level-wise, Mustafi being primo.
I think Koscielny's had a dreadful season as well.
Yeah, but he's made of like
He's literally made of
screws
pure
and
shit.
bolts.
Yeah, his Achilles doesn't work anymore. But I think you've got to look at that United defence as well, because when you're praising De Gea for saving his side like 14 goals it is according to expected goals, then you've got to wonder why he's facing f***ing shots. And it's because he's got
And it's not as if
a
Mourinho
bunch
was
of
the most
dunces in
expansive
front of
manager.
him.
That's the more worrying.
It's
If
true.
Mourinho was the most expansive
If he was playing like Wenger, when
Yeah.
he was like, let's score
Do
12
you know what I
goals in
mean?
this
Or
game.
even if we were attacking like Manchester City, flowing forward in numbers, you'd think, okay, we're going to actually concede more shots because we're not based on possession, but we're flowing forward. Whereas we just sit back, huddle around the edge of the area, and just absorb pressure.
Well, you favour the 4-2-3-1, don't you? The 4-3-3's been a rarity this season, and when you're even in a 4-3-3, when you're playing in Nemanja Matic and Ander Herrera, whose numbers were incredible last season, like that guy's burp, incredible last season when it came to tackles and interceptions, you expect the defence to be shielded a little bit more, or not as many shots to get through. So yeah, it is alarming.
I think
And what I also think was alarming was I heard yesterday Jose Mourinho wants Ashley Young to play another 50-game season next year.
That is worrying. I agree.
At left back.
I think the bigger problem isn't necessarily the ability to defend for Chris Smalling or Phil Jones in terms of they'll chuck their face in front of the ball. It's the ability on the ball. That's something United struggle with so badly, is breaking the first line of press when they press our central defenders. It either goes in a consistent view from left back, centre back, right back, centre back, left back. Nobody is good enough to go, I'm going to split two players there and play it straight into the number 10.
And that's where I actually saw a little bit of justification in terms of Liverpool paying 75 million for Van Dijk,
100%.
because he has actually brought that ability to sort of break the lines to Liverpool.
Mustafi's worse than both Smalling and Jones.
To an extent, yeah.
I think he's probably about as bad as Smalling. The thing is, he's more reckless than them. Like, because he's a front foot defender, and like you said, like Arsenal play a much more expansive style, he's constantly exposed. And the thing is, Koscielny was always able to deal with that because Koscielny has, for a centre-back, like next level athleticism, or used to, and was a much better reader of the game. Monreal doesn't have that athleticism, but Monreal has had a reasonable season because Monreal can actually read the game.
He was actually having a really good season to start with, wasn't he?
Kind of, but the thing is, I think he's going to win our Player of the Year in a season where our defence has been absolutely dreadful, which is mental. But I think, but Mustafi just lacks that basic ability. The only good thing I think you can really say about Mustafi is he's really good in the air, and actually he is quite aggressive with his
someone
passing.
who's not that tall.
His passing's okay. His passing's not too bad out of the bat, but he plays on the front foot, and if you play on the front foot, you better get it right. Otherwise, you're going to get red cards. You're going to look stupid.
He reminds me a little bit of Otamendi pre-Pep.
Yeah.
In that his numbers, his sort of tackles and interceptions can be quite high per game, and he can, in individual scenarios, he can demonstrate very good defending. But I just think there's something like Otamendi was playing next to Vincent Kompany or whoever else. I think he needs that a more assured partner, and Koscielny hasn't been able to be that presence because he's been inconsistently fit, right?
And also I think they're too similar. Like, I think when you've got that aggressive front foot defender, you need somebody more conservative next to them who's going to mop up behind them. Whereas what you're doing is you're playing two guys who want to run out of the back line and just like make tackles and interceptions. And now Koscielny doesn't have that pace anymore. He can't cover for Mustafi's mistakes.
And it's a bit like how Chelsea found that balance in the back three, right, when Antonio Conte first came and switched it up. Like, you had David Luiz, who looked a little bit reckless, and then all of a sudden he was the sweeper, and you had Gary Cahill and Azpilicueta actually applying the pressure.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden David Luiz looked very composed, assured, was responsible for distribution. So you can actually see if a more defence-orientated coach came in, or you reinforce in that area, Mustafi improving somewhat?
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely more to come. Like, I mean, like, he cannot be worse than he's been this season. Like, there's no system. There's no system. He's played horribly. I think that with a bit more protection from the midfield, and a better structured defence, he will look a bit better. But I don't think he'll ever be truly great. I mean, the other people I'd like to give a shout out for here, all of Bournemouth's defence, apart from Nathan Ake. Like, so I saw a thing last night that said Nathan Ake has been Bournemouth's Player of the Month, I think 6 times this season. That's how shit the rest of Bournemouth season. That's how bad the rest of Bournemouth's season have been. He's outrageous, and the rest.
Francis, Adams.
Francis, Cook, Daniels. They're just
How many
blokes.
English names can we get in
They're
there?
just blokes. It just sounds like somebody like, you know,
Proper blokes though, mate.
Sounds like someone doing a
Souness is
register,
sort of
doing a
blokes.
register in the 50s. You know.
Yeah.
And then Aki, get out, mate.
Let's go on to midfielders though.
Alright, cool. Go on then, you lead the charge with midfielders.
Well, I think
Zabaleta as well.
we can put our hands up and say we got this one nailed down. That Gylfi Sigurdsson would be howling signing, and to all the little out there that when you don't know what you're talking about, how's 7 goal contributions in 2,500 minutes gone down for you? Because he's rubbish at £45 million, and everyone knows it.
Is that in all competitions?
The Premier League.
Yeah, in the Prem. Yeah, I mean, there's been a few of them this season, hasn't there? That have cost big and have failed to deliver in midfield. Bakayoko at Chelsea.
What's going on with Bakayoko?
So I actually still think he is a good footballer,
And he's young.
but I don't know if he's been rushed back or if he's been played unfit. He started the season unfit, didn't he?
Yeah.
I remember in his debut game he actually put in a real shift for Conte despite not being fully fit. But his short game has been poor. He's for a box-to-box midfielder, he's been relatively bad at finishing, and he's not offering anything discernibly 30 million plus-esque, especially when, you know, Chelsea perhaps looks stronger, look better, more well-rounded without him at the minute in a midfield three. Yeah.
He was effectively brought in, wasn't he, as an Nemanja Matic replacement. And I think Conte has gone, he isn't that role at all.
Well, when he does all this defensive work, it basically makes Kante the guy who has to like be playing kind of the needle midfielder, and that takes away from what Kante does best. I mean, actually, I kind of thought at one stage this season what would have really benefited both sides if Arsenal like swapped like Ramsey for Bakayoko. Because Chelsea wanted Bakayoko to make these runs into the box, be the third man in attack. Yeah. Ramsey's great at that. Arsenal needed a guy who wasn't going to try and like spray the ball 50 yards, but he was just going to crunch his tackles in midfield and could kind of run away from people. He just doesn't seem right for that Chelsea system. Like Matic, as big as Matic is, as good as he is at defending, Matic is a really like clever, classy player. Yes. And Bakayoko might be that as well, but that's clearly something that's still developing in his game. He's 23.
He's very relaxed on the ball at the moment, Matic. He feels like he's a lot of time on the ball, and whenever I watch Bakayoko, it always seems quite panicky.
The outgoing Yaya Toure said that Nemanja Matic was his most difficult opponent throughout the years in the Premier League, and that's neither am I, because he's so well rounded. And when you lose a player who can do everything, to replace him with a player who, as you said, is so raw, puts a lot of responsibility on Bakayoko's shoulders, and he's just looked a little bit lost in games.
And I mean, another central midfielder that's definitely worth mentioning, Renato Sanchez. Whoa. Maybe more because we were expecting quite a lot, and he's disappointed so much.
I quite liked the loan signing because I think both parties stood to gain a lot from it, and it's kind of dissipated, hasn't it? And it's a shame because it's going to set the player back another year.
Well, at least another year. I don't see where Renato Sanchez goes from this. He doesn't go back to Bayern Munich and get any game time, which means he has to go on loan again from Bayern Munich or be sold by Bayern Munich. So for his options, because he'd had such a howling season this year. The season before that didn't get any game time. So we've had 2 years effectively out of the game.
Really important years.
Yeah.
Formative years, yeah.
Especially as he did so well at Euro 2016. His subsequent 2 years have been a shambles.
But it's hard not to see him having use for somebody. Like, he's the kind of guy who, if you're like a medium to big club, you might think, yeah, we'll take a punt on him if you can get him for a cheap price. He's a very good dribbler, he does a decent amount of defensive work, and I think you can turn him into a useful player in midfield. The problem is this season, I don't think Swansea knew what they wanted out of him. And also, I just struggle to kind of, I feel it's been a real nightmare for anyone coming into Swansea this season.
Yeah.
They've been a mess, like tactically, they cannot attack, they cannot defend. I mean, Nathan Dyer, I think, deserves a shout out here. Played 1,200 minutes in the league, hasn't got a goal.
Former Premier League winner, Nathan Dyer. I actually think this leads quite nicely in attack, because I was going to lead with Ayew, but I do agree with Swansea in that, you know, letting Roque Mesa go to Sevilla, a Champions League club at the time, who thought that he had something to offer. Signing Andre Ayew back to the tune of £20 million. I still think he's yet to score on his return. They've been a real kick bollock scramble club, haven't they, this season?
Wilfred Boney being a prime example. We'll bring Wilfred Boney back from Manchester City, and he was clearly not fit at Manchester City. Re-sign him, immediately does his ACL. It's such obvious thinking.
Yeah, and this means less. I was just about to say to the words out of my mouth. This means less minutes for a progressive signing like Tammy Abraham, which is not great. But any of the forwards you can think of, lads?
Shane Long, definite candidate.
Shane Long, very short return this season.
Any of that Southampton front line. That Southampton front line has affected. They've scraped.
Charlie Austin's been okay when he's played, and I actually think Redmond's a good player. He's been in and out, but yeah, Tadic's had a bad season, Gabbiadini's had a bad season, Long has had a woeful season.
I feel for Southampton this season because they've had to deal with, I think player churn has finally caught up with them, as well as the revolving door of managers. Obviously Pochettino sort of laid the foundations for their, I know Coman was there last season, but they're kind of, was it back-to-back finishes of 8th in the Premier League? Yeah, obviously Puel led them to 8th as well. Yeah, might have been even higher beforehand. But they've just, every time they've lost a top-tier player, whether it be Van Dijk, whether it be one of the numerous boys that have gone to Liverpool, they've kind of replaced him with a player just below that level. And I feel like it's gradually caught up with him. Pellegrino was a gamble, but an educated gamble. He actually had a very good reputation in Spain beforehand, and the same problem has remained at Southampton for the last 18 months, hasn't it? I mean, they sell someone like Jay Rodriguez, Gabbiadini doesn't bang. Buffal, I think they thought he was going to be that person that in a classic Southampton mold where he comes in, they develop him, he sets the world alight, they sell on for much more, and he's not been that person. So I think big clubs chipping away at them has finally taken its toll.
Yeah, although the signings in the summer were horrible. I cannot believe they didn't identify they need another striker when they sold Jay Rodriguez. For me, that's a horrible mistake. Shane Long has gone through the season. He scored 2 goals in 1,500 minutes. That's nowhere near good enough for a striker. Yeah. Charlie Austin is so injury prone, you can't rely on him. And you're asking Manolo Gabbiadini, who had a to be fair, he had a decent last 6 months, didn't he? Or at least 3 or 4 months. At the tail end of last season, where he took them to obviously a cup final, nearly won them the cup, and then scored a few important goals in the league. But you're relying at such a risk to rely on just Manolo Gabbiadini. Shane Long is not a goal scorer. Charlie Austin is consistently injured to score all your goals.
Well, they brought in Carrillo as well, and then barely played him. I don't think their signings are that bad in some. I think Wesley Hoods is a good signing. I think that Lemina is a really good signing. But actually, when I look around that defence, I think there are 5 or 6 players here who would interest bigger clubs, especially their fullbacks. But yeah, they could not attack this season. They couldn't really attack last season as well, and they just didn't really upgrade there. I still think they'd be okay, except that now they're looking at giving Mark Hughes a 3-year contract, and it just seems like one of those things where
took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, is he staying for longer? Because that seems like a really regressive step.
Well, yeah, because when you think about somebody like Marco Silva is just sitting out there, and they were linked to him last summer. There are people out there who don't have jobs, or somebody like Adi Puto who's just won the league with young boys. These are progressive, exciting managers who want to play good football with young players, and they need to do what they did when they got like Mane. They got Tadic out of FC Twente. They got Mane out of RB Salzburg. They need to be going to these places again and looking for those youngsters.
What about Roger Schmidt? Southampton.
Roger Schmidt would be amazing because they've got a bunch of players who have played in pressing systems, right?
I really agree with that actually. So I've got a worry for Southampton this summer that they, under Hughes, identify existing 28 to 29-year-old Premier League targets that have been around the league for a while. But Hughes thinks he can improve in the short term and go away from that. Like you said, the Salzburg sort of signings for Sadio Mane, the identification of targets across Europe that was so strong over the last few years that made them that profit that gave them, brought in the likes of Van Dijk, that they identified Celtic as being a potential profit signing. So I don't know whether Mark Hughes has got that in it to do. He hasn't done it anywhere else. Hasn't done it.
And I also think has Mark Hughes won just the 2 league games since he's taken over?
Look at Hughes' recruitment at Stoke, and you look at Bojan, you think, okay, everybody knew about him, not particularly.
And now on loan at Alaves.
Yeah, exactly. Jesse Rodriguez in the same mould, Shaqiri in the same mould, Afellite in the same mould, Bula in the same mould, Zuma in the same mould, Vimmer in the same, like they're all the exact same type of player that he's signed because they've either been at a big club or they've done it at top level and then have been kind of pushed aside because other players at that club have progressed and they haven't. And he's gone, I'll give him a second chance. He's a second chance manager. Southampton can't afford second chance signings. Yeah. They need to be the people who sign young and sign talented and then reset.
Especially when you look at clubs like Brighton who are doing it well, like Brighton brought in Groyson, Izquierdo, like those are really good signings, not too expensive, under 20
David Proper, who's actually been very good at the tail end of the season.
And they've just found these like good, useful parts. Like so, I don't know. I still think that Southampton would be okay if they don't give that contract to Hughes, if they've still got time to do that, and then stick to their
their guns, basically, their ethos, yeah.
Yeah, because it's worked for them. It's taken them up 3 leagues.
So we've obviously suggested quite a few names there. Can't remember who we suggested, but if you've got any other players that should have gone into the worst Premier League team of the season, why don't you let us know in the comments below and on social media on E3.
Just before we move into our next question, then we actually have a very special live stream coming your way. It's the end of the season, baby. We've got a lot of prizes to give away, so tune in at 2:30 today on Football Daily and make sure you go and watch me versus Akin Fenwa. Yes, the Beast himself on Stat Wars The Champions. It's the Beast versus the Animal. That is probably on a par with mine. Embarrassing.
The next question was sent in by Hassan Sadiq, and he says, who has been your manager of the season? We're going to start in England, where it's obviously Pep Guardiola. We're all in agreement Pep Guardiola has been the manager of the season, right? But we're going to look at some other candidates as well. So, who wants to step up and talk about him first?
I like Roy Hodgson. I think Roy Hodgson deserves a shout here. I mean, look, under De Boer, Crystal Palace's expected goals numbers look good. Like they kind of predicted that there would be an uptick, and he kind of didn't get enough time to produce that uptick. So Hodgson wasn't starting from his lower basis, given that he took over a team that had 7 losses out of 7 and hadn't scored a goal. But given that disadvantage, they're the 10th highest scorers in the league, despite the fact they had that disadvantage at the beginning, despite the fact they cannot find the net this season. I mean, they have had about 12 penalties in the league. But I think that they've been really entertaining. I think they've played good football. I think he's worked out a system that gets the most out of the guys. I quite like their signing of Sorloth as well. I think that'll be an interesting one for them going forward. I think he's got something out of young players as well, like Wan-Bissaka, who looks like an interesting guy. Loftus-Cheek will probably go on to have a really solid Premier League career, thanks to what Hodgson's done this year. Yeah, I'd be delighted for him. I think he's quite an unusual talent in this game. But Hodgson has lost 8 games out of 30 after De Boer lost 7 out of 7. And everyone was kind of mocking it at the time because of what had happened with him with England, where admittedly, like, you know, we were his biggest critics. We said he was doing a horrible job, and we were proved right. But I'm really glad that he's done well at Palace because he's actually shown time and time again that if you give him a mid-table side, Roy Hodgson will get production out of it. He did it with Fulham, and he's doing it again with Palace. Yeah, and I'm really pleased for him. He did it with West Brom too.
Yeah, I mean, having Hodgson at the helm made much more sense than having De Boer, especially when Crystal Palace didn't back De Boer in the transfer market to recruit the players that would match his system. We've had a couple of conversations about this, haven't we? And I think Hodgson doesn't deserve Manager of the Year because Crystal Palace were more equipped, more well adept to get out of that situation than other teams in their vicinity. What about Chris Hughton? I think big prop should go to him. Made some very daring, analytically driven signings. You have David Proper came from the Eredivisie. You have Pascal Gross, who came from Ingolstadt for £3 million and has contributed to over 15 goals, I think, this season as of last weekend, which is crazy. And the numbers were there beforehand, weren't they? He was the 7th or 6th best creator in Europe last season in terms of chances created. But yeah, I think Hughton, to keep that Brighton side up, given the level of talent, to develop people like Dunk at centre-back, who I quite like. I like Dunk. I think, who's the right-back as well, or is it the left-back? Long-haired, looks like he should be in the darkness. His name sort of sounds like Gelato. He was a bit of a surprise package, had a bit of a nomadic career, played for Inter Milan at one point. But yeah, so he's made some really obscure signings that have paid dividends. So I really like Houghton for this. I know you're a bit of a Dyche fan though, Joe.
They play good football as well.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like how Sean Dyche plays football. And yes, he has got lucky. I know that's definitely going to be one of your arguments in terms of you look at expected goals numbers, etc.
Yes.
But I don't think you can fault how Sean Dyche organises his defence. I think Sean Dyche's defensive organisation is very strong. I think if you were to say at the beginning of the season, right, I'm going to take your best defender, Michael Keane, he's getting sold. I'm going to take your starting goalkeeper, Tom Heaton, he's going to be out for the entire season. I'm going to replace him with Tarkowski and I'm going to replace him with Nick Pope. Not many people would give him a chance of being anywhere near the top 10, let alone 7.
European football, baby.
Yeah.
Do people in Burnley even have passports?
I also think that some of his signs have been good. Look, he identifies targets that fit the system he plays. Yes, it might not be pretty. Yes, it might not be as nice on the eye as a Brighton or a Crystal Palace. But Chris Wood, to sign him in the summer from Leeds, he knew exactly what he needed from Chris Wood, and that's what he's got. He's got 9 Premier League goals from Chris Wood, and I almost guarantee 70% of them will
Big white hench player.
Yeah, but the whiteness doesn't necessarily make a difference.
Well,
he wanted a target man, didn't he? And he got a target man, and then the target man's been effective for him in that situation. So I think he's identified good targets. I think he's improved the defence. I think he's dealt well with calamitous situations, i.e. Tom Heaton injury, and to get his team, that Burnley side up to 7, I think he's nothing short of a miracle, quite frankly. Might be lucky, but even if you took the luck out of it,
reminds me a little.
If you took the luck out of it, I don't think he would be in a relegation.
A little bit of.
He could have been.
No, but there'd be
Kind of
17 goals for it.
Allardyce at Bolton, and he's probably. He's probably
superstar signings, right?
More of a diverse manager than would appear from the outside looking in. But he plays to his strengths, sticks to a very simple ethos, and it's paid off for it.
One other manager I think is worth mentioning is Jurgen Klopp. I think if you
Big Jurgen.
Champions League.
Yeah, not if he loses the Champions League and comes 5th.
Yeah, although if
I
you
don't
get into
think
a Champions League final with
I
that
don't think
squad.
they've been spectacular in the league, to be honest.
No, but to get to a Champions League final with that squad.
Sure, yeah, I think you've got to look at that. I think you've also got
And to be the highest scorers and to have, you know.
40 goals in the Champions League
Yeah.
going into the final is absolutely unheard of for any team, let alone a team of that level.
Yeah, and given as well that like when you look at their starting 11 at the beginning of the season, about 7 of that starting 11 have changed since.
Yeah.
He's basically found value in the squad where you wouldn't have expected him.
Yeah, to lose Coutinho as well.
And Trent Alexander-Arnold, you know, like bringing people like that in, like that's
Robertson.
That's quite remarkable. It is saying about Perry has ended up being locked in a Van Dijk on the start of the season with Matty and Gomez pretty much. Yeah. So I think he's definitely done a good job. I think you'd want to look at people as well like Nagelsmann in Germany and Jardim in France. These are people who lost a bunch of players last summer, important players, rebuilt and have made their sides competitive again. You know, Monaco looks like they'll probably finish 2nd in a league which actually is quite tough this season. There are at least 4 good teams in there.
Yeah.
Nagelsmann lost Rudy, he lost Zula, and he's rebuilt again. He's got Gnabry on loan. It looks to have developed him really well. And once again, they're around the top 4 race. Like I don't think they've been. The problem with the chasing pack in Germany is that none of them are really very good. But when you think about the talent, when you look at the talent at Hoffenheim's disposal, it's negligible really.
Average.
And Nagelsmann gets used for that.
I might be stating the obvious here, but I watched the Coppa Italia final last night, and Allegri has now done the double at Juventus 4 times in the last 4 years, and their record in the Coppa Italia wasn't that impressive beforehand, and they won the tournament without conceding a single goal. They're not just dominant, they are rampant, aren't they, in Italy? And it looks like they're going to secure another Scudetto as well after Napoli's slip-ups. I mean, if he does, I really, really hope he goes to Arsenal. That would be an absolutely go move. Or Allegri to, we've discussed this before, haven't we? Allegri to Chelsea, Conte to Arsenal. That would be the perfect situation. Really absolute vendetta, Mafia 2 style. What a game that was. But yeah, I think Allegri, just the job he's done and continues to do with a side that have spent money on proven talents like Higuain, but also a side that's managed to squeeze every last modicum of talent, of performance out of the likes of Barzagli, Chiellini, Benatia, Mandzukic. Play Mandzukic as an auxiliary left winger, yeah.
They got to a Champions League final and when their wing backs were Evra and
Lichtstein, yeah. Where Evra is like struggling at life at West Ham.
Yeah, who is the other fullback as well?
You also got
Sandro.
No, it's not Sandro. Sandro has not been great this season, actually. Not the Shiglio either. But he bought from AC Milan, didn't he? I don't think he's overly performed this season. But yeah, he brought the baller through. He's brought Bernardeschi, who looks like a very good signing. Pjanic is now the hub of that side. So he's not just won, he's actually... The side's constantly evolved. Kevin Asamoah, which I like that you were thinking about that when I was talking. That is a really underrated skill, especially when you see that's been the pitfall of a lot of Italian sides, right? They've been dominant. Italian, teams are well known to playing people into their late 30s, and then they've sort of run out of steam. And they've recruited really well, which AC Milan haven't, as we saw in the final. But I'd go, Allegri too.
Overall, we're saying Pep, surely. To break all the Premier League records, win it by record points tally.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look past Pep, but on the other hand, like, I don't know how you guys feel, but when I think about City, I just have this faint sense of disappointment. So I think about what their season could have been. I think they could have won the Champions League.
Yeah, the Champions League is a sour taste, isn't it?
They could have had a treble this season, but they came up against the side that was probably, like I said the other day, and a few people have said this, and we all got shared, that Liverpool had an easy run to the Champions League final, and as easy as it can be. And I do kind of, in the case of City versus Liverpool, I feel like Liverpool, their strengths exactly match up with City's weaknesses. But Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Sarri as well. I mean, it's sad for Sarri because by expected goals, they have the best attack in Italy, they have the best defence in Italy, they play the most attractive football pretty much in Europe. And I wish they had more to show for what otherwise should be.
I for one am buzzing for the Man City behind the scenes documentary on Amazon.
Is that coming out next year?
Yeah, it's coming out next year. Follow them this season. I mean, what a season to follow.
I mean, Man City TV, props to them. They've been killing it for the last 6 months.
By the way, this is not a sponsored post, so don't. Although if you are Amazon TV,
what happens to that thing where we were going to get cars or something?
Yeah.
Joe ended up in a Japanese truck. That was it.
With Smithy.
Coming soon, so.
The Rhino.
So that's the end of Sunday Vibes for this week. If you want to be involved next week, get your comments in below with the hashtag Sunday Vibes, or why not tweet it to us as well. Pato usually sends the tweet out on Wednesday, so reply to that. Like we said before though, what should they do next?
Yeah, like I said halfway through the episode, go and watch Stat Wars The Champions if you haven't already, and go and check out FDFC, where we actually do personal mastermind with Del Piero. Ooh! Non-league vlogs coming soon. This is Sunday Vibes. What else?
We've got the watch along up this afternoon as we follow the last day of the Premier League season with our friends at Now TV, so head on over to that. Around 2:15, 2:30 it will be kicking off, and then we will follow the games, hopefully giving you some insight, letting you know about our thoughts on the highs and lows, and maybe looking ahead to the World Cup a little bit. Who knows, depends how dry the games are.
Bye!